one of the early investments, I bought a triple net gas station, which is, kind of an easy place to start. It's easy math. And the bank paid for 80% of it. I paid for 20%. I got all the depreciation and all of the income. And I'm like, this can't be legal, right?
Welcome to the Next Level Income Show, where it's our goal to take your income, your investments, and your life to the next level. I'm your host, Chris Larson. If you haven't yet, get a copy of our book for free at our website, nextlevelincome.com. That's www.nextlevelincome.com. Just click on the book link, and I'll even send you a copy if you put your address in. If you are a high-income professional, a doctor, a surgeon, a business owner, or just somebody like me that was earning a high income in their professional career, you're going to want to listen to today's podcast with Dr. Tyson Cobb. He is a semi-retired orthopedic surgeon with over 40 years of investing experience across multiple different asset classes. He grew tired of the inconsistent returns and volatility of the stock market and ultimately moved into real estate investments, which provided much better returns and more stability. Tyson recently came out with a new book, which we're going to share with you today. And he's going to share his framework that he outlines in that book to help you map out how you can achieve the same financial independence that he has. In addition to helping colleagues find financial freedom, Dr. Cobb has also found purpose in his life by financially supporting charitable organizations that support those that are less fortunate. Dr. Cobb, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. I'm really excited. I've been reading your new book, Wealth by Design, Tyson, and we've known each other for a lot of years. So
Right.
I'm really honored to finally get you on the podcast here. And a lot of the audience knows I spent nearly 2 decades in the medical device field, getting to work with surgeons like yourself, orthopedic surgeons, and just tremendous experience. Lots of great relationships I built over that time. And your book's fantastic, but why I want you to come on, Tyson, is you've really built a great framework, not just for doctors, for surgeons, but really all high income earners. So if you're listening today and you're a high income earner, Dr. Cobb is going to outline what he shows in his book, how you can replicate the same financial freedom that he has. But before we dive into that, Tyson, I'd love for you to share, a little bit about your story, your background, and how you got to the point of writing this book.
Yeah, so I left my group in 2019 and dropped back to 1 day a week. And
Yeah.
I was doing pretty well financially, or so I thought, and was expecting my income and everything to start to taper down. When you go from full-time busy orthopedic surgeon to 1 day a week, you expect things to taper off there a bit. And it actually went drastically the other direction because I started investing in real estate, how to mitigate taxes, which, as you know, is something that's very easy to do with real estate investing and
Yeah.
very difficult to do as a full-time orthopedic surgeon investing in the stock market. So as I made that transition, things really turned around. And one of the early investments, I bought a triple net gas station, which is kind of an easy place to start. It's easy math. And bank paid for 80% of it. I paid for 20%. I got all the depreciation and all of the income. And I'm like, this can't be legal, right? This is too easy. And it just went on from there. And then I moved into syndications. And as you know, it's hard to scale when you're doing the stuff on your own because, there's just a lot of stress and a lot of task and busy things that you have to do. But move into syndications and start investing as a limited partner, you can scale that.
Yes.
And so it really exploded at that point. And it's all about just vetting the deal. You got to vet the team and the property and the location. And if you check all the boxes, they're not all going to do well. Some of them get snake bit. So it's important to spread your money and diversify.
Great point.
Yeah, it was a game changer for me. And it was such an exciting because you're just told throughout your life, or we were as orthopedic surgeons,
Yeah.
that oh, Dr. Cobb, don't complain that you're having to, write so much money for taxes. It just means you're making lots of money, and that was
Yeah.
the way it was back then.
It's a
And,
good problem to have, right?
a good problem to have, right? And the problem is I had the wrong CPA.
Yeah.
And so, figured out that and solved that problem. And yeah, I mean, that's the reason I wanted to write the book, is because there's so many people out there that are still wearing those blinders, and it's just an amazing world on the other side of the fence. And
Yeah.
you were talking about relationship with the surgeons, and it's interesting as you move from one group to the next. And I'm sure you went through this, but it's such an amazing life
Yeah.
when you get to team up with entrepreneurs
Yeah.
who really have no ceiling,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
they just think differently about everything. They think
Absolutely.
differently about their health. They think differently about their relationships. They think
Yeah.
differently about their finances. They think differently about giving. It's just a different group of people, and
It
I just
is.
feel blessed to get to work with them every day.
It is. It's energizing, and it's kind of a shame. You were fortunate, but you saw both sides as a surgeon. When I started my career in the early 2000s, I saw the surgeons I worked with that had been doing it for 10, 20, 30 years were very entrepreneurial. And then as we saw more surgeons become employed by hospitals, kind of the mindset shifted. I want to ask you two things. One of the things you mentioned or you said in your book was, you were doing very well financially. You had a thriving practice, but what you gave up for that, your time with your family, your freedom, your lifestyle, your health. I'd love for you to dive into that, but I would also love to hear your perspective on, how did you manage the identity shift? Because when you go to school till you're like, when did you finish your residency?
Oh, let's see. I finished in 97.
Yeah, so you probably
That
were
was
in
my
your early
fellowship back.
30s, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, when you do something and you're known as Dr. Cobb, you're known as this orthopedic surgeon, what were there any challenges there? Kind of giving up all that that business, that practice that you built. How did you manage that? I know that's a challenge for a lot of the coaching clients that I've worked with.
Yeah, so it's even worse than you can imagine. But I was very, very active in academics. So I mean, I literally traveled all over the world teaching people how to do minimally invasive hand and upper extremity surgery. So I went being like the master
Yeah,
to being the guy that knew nothing.
yeah,
So I didn't even know that vocabulary. I mean, I would literally, I started listening to your podcast pretty early on, and other podcasts, and I'm like, I don't even know what these people are talking about.
hmm.
So I had
Yeah,
to Google these terms and learn the vocabulary, and there
yeah,
was a good 12, 16-month period there where I felt very uncomfortable, in these rooms.
yeah,
But I just kept going, kept reading books, listening to podcasts, going to meetings. And it was a challenging transition, but it was a fun one. I mean, I like a challenge and I like learning
yeah,
new things. So it was stimulating for me, and it still is. I mean,
yeah,
it's never ending because you're just picking up additional asset classes, and of course the markets are changing all the time, so you have to
yeah,
adapt and overcome. And
yeah,
and it's been a really fun transition.
yeah.
So it's been good.
Yeah, and I imagine one of the biggest things you talk about a couple things in your book. You talk about the freedom of time and the ability to give more, freely with
Yeah.
respect to that. I know that's a big thing. A lot of people don't realize that haven't gone through this process, and that's why we're going to talk about your framework today to help others, do the same thing. I just remember missing. I was on call for 12 years, and I got to work with a lot of surgeons, so I got to be on call for all of them, not just one. I don't know if my schedule was quite as demanding as yours, but I missed a lot of birthdays. I missed Mother's Days, and I said I just can't. These moments. My father passed away, as I mentioned, when I was 5, and I said, man, I can't let. I have the opportunity to be a father to my boys. I got to really figure out how to actually spend this time with them. And in your book, you talk about, and I love it, the bones framework as an orthopedic surgeon. So I'd really love for us to walk through your today, Tyson. So whether you're a surgeon that's listening, like you are, or whether you were like me, you're a high income earner, in a professional career that you spent, a lot of years building that, this framework can help others work towards the same goals that you have. So let share with us how you constructed the Bones framework, and then what are the different buckets as we kind of walk through the audience here, and then hopefully they can get a copy of your book, which is fantastic, by the way, and if they want to dive deeper into it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the B in Bones is believe. So I mean, it's a mindset change. So I had to go from being an orthopedic surgeon who was dependent on my financial advisor to do all of my investing and my CPA to handle my tax mitigation strategies, or
Yeah.
more appropriately, the lack thereof. And
Right.
I think that is one of the hardest things is transitioning from I don't know anything about this. I'd never taken any
Yeah.
finance. I hadn't done any real estate investing other than and then farm ground because I grew up on a farm and ranch, so I knew a little bit about that. But
Yeah.
it was intimidating, and so I think you have to first just challenge yourself to believe that you're capable of going through because it's not rocket
Yeah.
science, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that you have to understand and
Yep.
learn. So it does take time, I think if you're fully committed, it's a transition that's doable and very rewarding when you do.
Yeah.
Um, the O is for organize your network. And as you know, your network is your net worth. It's critically important that you get in with the right groups and so that you can learn and ask questions. And as you move through the various processes of buying real estate or investing in syndications or whatever path you choose to go down, you're going to run into a lot of, I'm not sure what to do with this. And it's
Yeah.
nice to be able to just send Chris a text and say, hey, what would you do about this?
Yeah.
Right? So your network
Absolutely. Yeah.
can really make it easy to transition some of these problems that you haven't encountered before.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
just to highlight that, two things. One, believe it's so important. Like, you don't achieve what you don't believe. I love that saying. I talk to my boys about that. Like, it's got to happen first in your head, especially when you're going through like an identity shift almost as you did. But I remember like Ray Alcorn wrote like the book on commercial multifamily investing. And I was fortunate he lived right up the road from me outside of Blacksburg, where I went to school at Virginia Tech. But today you can listen to a podcast, you can reach out to people via social media. If you're listening and you're nervous about, figuring something out, I mean, you can reach out to us. I even have chrislarson.ai now. You can literally go and ask my virtual self 24/7 any of these questions. I mean, can you imagine, 20 years ago,
yeah.
instead of having to look in a medical book or look up a study, you could just literally type it into a chat GPT type engine and figure it out. We're just in an amazing time for learning, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. There's information explosion right now is just mind-boggling, isn't it?
Oh, it's incredible. It's really a force multiplier. So let's get to N here.
Yes, that's nurture your knowledge. So, obviously you're going to have to, confused people don't invest, right? So
Yes.
you have to understand the facts and you just have to commit to learning. You have to learn about, all the different loan options that you have and so forth and so on. And as you know, there's been a lot of blood in the streets and chaos in the multifamily because of loan-related things that didn't work out too well over the last few years. So,
Yeah.
it's mind-boggling the number of variables that you have to be able to kind of process
Yeah.
and mitigate risk with. And so that takes time, it takes some dedication, and it's not rocket science, but there's a fair amount of volume that you have to go through. So
Yeah.
lots of information, just like your podcast and stuff all the time. And if you're dedicated, I think one of the mistakes that professionals make is the feeling that there's no time. The reality is that
Mm,
they have no time to do what they want to do. The
right.
reality is even within the processes that are set up for them in the day, there's
Yeah.
time in cases where you're sitting there. Now you can't leave and go spend time with your kids, but you
Right.
can turn a podcast on and
Yeah.
you
Great point.
drive over to the other hospital to round on your patients.
Hmm.
You can't go spend time with your kids right now because
Yeah.
you're driving, but you can turn an audio book on. So
Yes.
there's
Great
time
point.
that you can collect, right? And so,
Absolutely.
for the people that are getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, like we do, and go to the gym, you can listen to it while you're on the treadmill or while you're lifting
Absolutely.
weight, whatever you're doing. So
Yeah.
there's a lot more time than you think. You just have to be dedicated enough to say, I'm going to get this done and push through it and just try to capture as much of the available time as you can. While we're talking about time, I think I skipped over one of your questions earlier, but that was one of the biggest transitions is I went from wearing the golden handcuffs of not having any time, to spend with the kids or do anything. And once you transition into real estate investing and alternative investments, you really, now you're in charge of your time. You're still busy. I
Yes.
mean, I'm busy
Yeah.
and I enjoy doing it. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it. I don't have
Yeah.
to. I do it because I enjoy it. But you can really kind of organize your time around your family so that you're able to do all the things that you were missing before.
Yeah.
And what I encourage physicians to consider, because a lot of people think, well, I'm either working full time or I'm retired. And the
Yeah.
reality is, you don't have to go down that lane. I mean, you can
Yeah.
cut back and still continue to do it. I'm
Yes.
working one day a week, and it allows me to kind of stay in the mix. I still enjoy doing orthopedic surgery. I just don't want to do it 24/7, and I don't want to be on call, and I don't want somebody else scheduling all of my time.
Yeah.
So getting your time back is, just a huge thing. The E in Bones is Embark. You have to take action. So it's critically
Do
important that you get
do
all
you
of
mind
those
if
other.
we do you mind if we underscore a couple quick things,
Sure, yeah, yeah,
real
absolutely.
quick? So, I just want to two things you mentioned, Tyson. One, one of my son's coaches. We were talking about how he plays. Actually, both my boys play lacrosse, but my other son's coach said, Ethan, he said, I was always using any spare moment I had to get better. And if I didn't have time, I would find a way to make time to do that. And your point is excellent. It's like instead of checking, the scores, like when I was on call or waiting for a surgery, I would do like an online course or I would underwrite a deal or I would, like you said, listen to a podcast. It took me several years of doing that and it wasn't rushed. But also I like the stepwise progression that you kind of introduced there, which is, if you're working, as a surgeon, you're probably working 5, 6 days a week, maybe even 7 if you're starting out to get some extra time and call schedule and maybe pay off student loans. But if you can go from 6 to 5, 5 to 4, spend that extra day there, you don't have to turn from 100% to 0% and do that. And I love that you're still practicing because all the experience, the knowledge you have, you can still impart that on your younger partners or others that are there. I think that mentorship thing is a really big thing. But then you mentioned Embark. Taking massive action is one of the things that I learned from Tony Robbins, and that's so important. Getting outside of that paralysis of analysis and ultimately taking action.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just important to do the other stuff first
Yeah.
because you don't want to do the wrong action, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's important to have, the mentorship and the teams and the networks and the knowledge and, do all of that first. You're still going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's like Joyce Meyer says, do it afraid. And I think a lot of life is that way, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we can't always be sure. I think it was Martin Luther King said, you don't have to see the top of the staircase. Just take the first step, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Take the first step, start taking
Yeah.
some action and move in the right direction. And everything just comes together. I mean, I think back how things have changed over time and how things have exploded with all the investing that we've done and the network that we've built. And I think the saying that you'll overestimate what you can do in a year and underestimate what you can do in 3 to 5 is really true, because as
Absolutely.
this starts snowballing and these deals start coming full cycle and
Yeah.
turning over, I mean, it's amazing how it grows,
Yeah.
and it's fun, it's exciting, you
Yeah.
know.
No, it is, and it's that's a great point. I always tell. I was having I was sitting at the bar actually drinking water last week with a younger guy that's part of the coaching program that I am, and he was just like, wow, there's so like he's like there's so much. He's like, I feel like I just got so much to figure out, and I said it's okay. Like you don't have to figure it all out at once. You just take that first step and, you build on that. And I told him, I said, look, real estate, I gave him the example, the first deal I bought Tyson, it was a $90,000 townhouse. And I actually just sold the property. I did a 1031 on with that. We took that $90,000 townhouse, $3,000 down, and after it was worth about twice what I bought it for, did a 1031, bought an office, bought it from the bank, $525,000. We just sold it at over $1 million, twice what I paid for it. And it took 20 years. And I explained to him, I said, look, like you're 30, you start now. I said, in 20 years, you're still only 50 years old. That might seem old to you. You're 30, but to me and you, that's not that old.
Right.
So yeah, real estate's a get rich slow game. I mean, that's how Arnold Schwarzenegger made his initial wealth. You look at Warren Buffett. He wasn't a billionaire until he was in his 50s. That compound effect, and it's not just compounding your money, it's compounding your knowledge, compounding your network. And the deals get bigger, the money gets bigger. That 50,000 turns into 100 over a few years. You roll that forward, and it's amazing how it compounds. So I think having that long term vision, when you initially set your mindset. Michelle Duckworth in her book Grit talks about, the children, the adolescents that say, "Hey, I'm going to be a professional musician or athlete." Those are the ones that end up becoming most successful. It's not the talent, it's the mindset.
Yeah. 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 If I had to outline one regret, it's not starting sooner. I would have
Yeah.
started sooner. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
We,
I wish I would have
yeah.
started this journey, in my 20s and 30s and
Sure.
to the extent possible. But,
Yeah.
you get there when you get there, right?
Yeah. Well, hey, if you're listening and you're in your 20s or 30s, take your first step after listening to this podcast. Reach out to us, let us know what we can do to help. But take that first step. Embark on that journey, if you will.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then the final one is serving it back.
I love
So
that.
I think
Yep.
a lot of people underestimate the power of the abundance that happens when you plug into that. Um, you have several things going on with that. You kind of have the concept of reciprocity, but beyond that, I mean, you have this underlying uh, essence of abundance that occurs when you start giving back. And if you look at the verses in the Bible that deal with wealth building and wealth preservation, it's amazing how much information is there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we just don't pay attention to it. There's a little verse here, a little verse there, and it kind of gets buried. And there's just a ton of information, and I would encourage people that haven't, have built that into their standard processes of, giving 10% or whatever your number is. I would challenge you to do it for months and see what happens.
Yeah.
Not only
Absolutely.
does it bring abundance into your life, but it brings more joy,
Yes.
and you'll just be a happier person.
Yeah. No, I love that. And look, if you're listening, you're like, man, I can't afford that. You can start with your time if you have to. You can start
Exactly.
donating your time if you literally can't afford to do that. But we've seen the same thing, whether it's donating our money. We started a financial literacy program here in Asheville. I know if you don't mind sharing, I know you've got a couple um, uh, um, initiatives that you work with on your website, Wildwood Hills Ranch and Camp Shalom. And I know you focus a lot on at-risk youth. Dr. Cobb, do
Right.
you mind sharing a little bit about that? And if people are interested in participating in those?
Sure, yeah. The Wildwood Hills Ranch that you mentioned, it's a very unique group, and as you mentioned, it's kids at risk. So these people are kids are referred in by social workers or some type of
Yeah.
program usually. Um, Many of these kids have parents that maybe both parents were put in prison for drugs or for
Mm,
some type of crime.
yeah.
Uh, you know, you hear stories of their dad getting shot at the kitchen table over a drug deal that went bad.
Mm,
Just incredible stories that most of
yeah.
us can't even really process. But at any rate, they make a commitment until they graduate from high school. So they try to hold these kids when they're around 8,
Yeah.
hang on to them for about a 10-year period. They have
Wow.
equine therapy in the afternoons for the kids that are close enough that they can come. They have summer camps, and they just try to teach them biblical principles,
Yep.
teach them leadership principles, teach them work ethic, because
Yep.
many of these kids are growing up in a house where there's not any work ethic, and
Yep.
so they try to breed that in and basically just change the trajectory of their life.
Yep.
And I think when you can do that to a child, you're having maximum impact on
Yeah.
society, I think your dollars are well spent. We just recently started back in a local group here called Youth Hope. They
Mhm.
also support kids at risk. It's a little different type of program. And so they just finished up capital raise. We helped them buy a building so they could expand their footprint. And now they're in the process of raising capital for vans to bus these kids in and out. And
Awesome.
they basically just
Yep.
try to provide a safe place for kids to go before and after school.
Yeah.
Uh, they have art teachers that provide that to the kids that are interested. They have like basketball type stuff, just different activities
Yeah.
to get these kids away from gangs and into
Yeah.
something productive. And I think the kids at risk programs are, something that just makes a huge difference when we can turn them around and get them on the right path. So, yeah, we're very
Absolutely.
passionate about those.
Yeah, no, thank you. And we agree. It's when you can impact the youth, they have so many more years to make an impact in society. And giving them, whether it's those relationships, that time, so they're not getting into things that can lead them down the wrong path. Or like sports can be such, I saw what cycling did for me. And it gives you so much confidence. It translates a lot of those skills, discipline, teamwork, the ability to, delay gratification, which is seems to
Um,
be in short supply these days with our youth, and the health aspect, which is also a big thing, which has a big effect on people's lives as they go forward. So thank you for sharing that. I like to wrap up here today, Tyson. I know in your book you talk about all the different types of investments you've been a part of. You talked about triple net leases in there. I know you've also been invested in apartments, hospitality, RV parks, if I recall correctly. I'd love to hear your perspective on not just what you've invested in, but also as we enter the second half of this decade. What do you see over the next 5 to 10 years to be the areas of greatest opportunity in your mind?
Well, I was listening to some experienced investors talk not too long ago, and they were talking about, what would you have done differently? And they said both of them agreed they was
Yeah.
more money and time investing in '08 and '09 when
Yeah.
everybody was afraid to invest. And I think
Yes.
we're kind of back in that scenario now.
Yeah.
It's not as bad now as it was then, but there's a lot of stuff coming to market. We just looked at one yesterday that was being presented. It's about a 40% discount from the peak. So
Yeah.
it's not discounted as much as they were in '08 and '09, but that's a
Yeah.
pretty good chunk off of
Oh yeah.
off the price. And they mentioned that there's the highest cap rate that they've purchased anything in years.
Yeah.
And for the listeners who are not familiar with that, is cap rate compresses and goes down, which it did for years. The value crunches, so it's
Yeah.
overvalued and
Yeah.
overpriced. And then as the cap rate goes back the other direction, which is what's happened now, it's just the opposite. So
Yeah.
you're paying less for a much more intrinsic value. And so
Yes.
if you look at where we are right now today, multifamily's been beat up. There's blood in the streets, and like
Yeah.
Rothschild said, when there's blood in the streets, it's time to buy, even if it's your own blood, right? And if you've got enough investments
Yeah.
in multifamily right now, you probably got a little blood in the streets, but that's
You're a little
okay.
cut up. Yeah. Yeah. You're a little
Yeah.
cut up. Yeah.
So, we're below the intrinsic value on a lot of stuff in multifamily because there's no
Yeah.
buyers at the table.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people are forced
Absolutely.
to sell. So when they
Yeah.
run out, the Feds ran the interest rates up, so now they're paying twice or three times or whatever the number is for their mortgage, and that doesn't work very well. But it's even worse when you get to the end of your loan because now your DSCR is upside down. You can't renew, and they're forced to sell.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible time to be forced to sell because there's no buyers at the table.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of discounted multifamily. On the other hand, you got the stock market, which is way overvalued by most indications.
Yeah.
And so
Historically so.
one might
Absolutely.
one might want to consider taking, something off the top on one side and shift it over to the other.
Yeah.
That would be position, at least relative to those two asset classes. The thing that we're doing now, and I'm kind of excited about, is we're doing roll-up strategies. So
Yeah.
we have a roll-up strategy that we're raising for right now on a fund that invests in medical and dental offices. It's a triple net.
Yeah.
We've got one that invests in marinas. We have one that invests in paving businesses. So we're
Yep.
buying
Yep.
not real estate with that, but businesses.
Yep.
And we have some other ones that we're working on. But the whole concept with the roll-up strategy is as your portfolio grows and you get enough of businesses or properties or whatever it is that you're rolling up, suddenly that becomes attractive to some of the bigger buyers that need to place
Yeah.
larger checks. So maybe it's 10
Absolutely.
million or whatever the number is. And they're willing to pay a premium for the convenience of not
Mhm.
having to put that portfolio together because it takes a lot of time and effort to do that.
Yeah.
And so, that gives you kind of a value add on the backside. So, you basically have, okay, here's our R just based on how we're underwriting this.
Hmm.
And then here's our upside if we make it to that and we can find a REIT or whatever that's interested in picking this up.
Yeah.
So I like that strategy because your value add there doesn't really cost you any capital.
Yeah.
It's different than multifamily where
Yes.
your upside requires you to take some risk and remodel in hopes that you're going to be able to bump the rents enough
Hmm.
to offset that. And so, with the roll strategy, no capital expenditure. You just keep
Yep.
doing it until you get a big enough portfolio that somebody is willing to pay a better multiple for it.
Absolutely. And with all these baby boomers retiring, 10% of the baby boomers that are retiring, about 10,000 a day, about 10% of them have businesses that they're selling. So it's a great time for that. Yeah. And I think just to piggyback on what you said, supply, we've had, historic supply in the multifamily market the past 2 years. That's dropping off. We have prices that have declined slightly because of that increase in cap rates, increase in interest rates, but the fundamentals still remain really, really strong. And if you're starting off, if you've maybe, what I saw, and we see this with a lot of retail investors, when the stock market wasn't doing well in 2022 and real estate was ripping, everybody wanted to pile into real estate. Now, as real estate has softened and the stock market is at all-time highs, people love the stock market. So I think going back to earlier part of our discussion, set that long-term plan. Invest in real estate deals every year. Put your money in different places. Set that plan for a long period of time, and you get the basically dollar cost average, just like you would in the stock market in real estate. So, Dr. Cobb, as we wrap up here today, you've got a great website, you've got a great book. What's the best way for our listeners to connect and get access to everything that you have to offer?
So our website's timberviewcapital.com, and my number is right there on my screen. So feel free to shoot me a text. Happy to jump on a call, talk shop or real estate or whatever. And tons of resources on our website. We've got a reading list. We have blogs. We have FAQs. We have recorded webinars. Some of the webinars will be launches for new deals. Some will be updates, so you can kind of go through and see how these funds are doing over time with these roll-up strategies. And then we have just educational webinars. So we did one last night on the Augusta rule and brought a
Yeah,
short rental specialist and a CPA in and kind of really dug in deep on that. So a ton of
love it.
free resources on the website, and you can schedule a calendar link with either me or my Tracy is our head of investor relations. So she was my private banker for about 15 years, and I hired her, and she's
Awesome.
doing a great job. I was in there one day, and she just didn't look happy, and I'm like, Tracy, what's going on? You look upset. She's like, oh, these new people that bought the bank. Blah blah blah. I'm like, why don't you
Mm,
just come work for me? I said, you don't even have to come in the office. You can just work from home and just take care of my investors the way you've taken care of me for the last 15 years. And so took her and her husband to dinner, and it's been history ever since. So
I
yeah,
love
it's
it.
working out great.
Wonderful. Good people. Well, Dr. Cobb, it's been great catching up with you here today. Thanks for sharing your story, the principles that you share in your new book with the audience. And if you listen here today, check out chrislarson.ai. If you have any of your questions 24/7, you can get those answered wherever you are on your investment journey. Thanks for joining us today. And again, thanks, Dr. Cobb.
Thank you, Chris. Enjoyed it.
Hey, Chris here again. I hope you found this episode valuable. Now, I have one more thing to gift you. We have a page for my coaching clients where you can get a free copy of my book, as well as much more from previous guests on the show. Just check out nextlevelincome.com/coaching to get a free copy of my book, audiobook, and much more. I'll send you a copy of my book and cover all the shipping costs as a thank you for listening to the podcast. Also, please like, share, and take just 90 seconds to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts.